Our fully simulated offseason for the 2025 Miami Dolphins continues here with a look at external free agency and the Miami Dolphins 2025 offseason blueprint.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, and the NFL Draft lead for the 33rd team. I want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. If you missed yesterday's show, I'm going to pause. You guys can go and watch or listen and then come back. And we will give the quick and dirty recap of yesterday's show. But it's off-season blueprint week here on Locked On Dolphins, which is an application of every facet of team building, every avenue of content that I create in this space, all in one place, all in one exercise. Contracts, free agency, the draft, player projection, player assessment, team building strategies, salary cap management, the nines. We are loaded this week, and it's external free agency day, which means you're trying your best to project the market. You're trying to project what players are within your budget. You're strategizing how do you structure money to get players to sign relative to what they've played for in the past and what their demand could possibly be, and simultaneously make it fit within the jigsaw puzzle of the Dolphins salary cap situation, which we covered yesterday on the Miami Dolphins offseason blueprint. And after all of the restructures and trimming of the fat, what we ultimately ended up with is that we brought 7 players back off of last year's team, and we had almost $34.5 million in salary cap space. We brought back Kader Kohou, Tyrell Dotson, Quentin Bell, Deshaun Hand, Keon Smith, Cameron Good, Grant Dubose, whether that was through exclusive rights free agency, a restricted free agent tender for Kader Kohou, or contract extensions. We did all that yesterday, but the number to know moving forward right now is $34.45 million. That is how much salary cap space I have to work with, exercising as Chris Greer throughout the course of this show and the rest of this week to conduct free agency. And then post-June 1st, because we chose to cut Bradley Chubb with a post-June 1st designation, you have what will be about $19.5 million in salary cap space that opens up on June 2nd for you to sign your rookies with, do any post-June 1st free agency, and have your operating cap space throughout the course of the season. Okay? So I've divided the 12-player free agency crop that I've put together. 12 players. It's robust, and there's some good players in here. There's also some addressing of needs throughout this as well. Some offensive skill players, some trenches reinforcements, and then some help in the secondary to kind of alleviate the burn that exists with the safety room right now. So let's start with the most important conversation piece you're probably thinking about, which is who the heck is your Tua Tagovailoa insurance? And it's going to be Marcus Mariota is going to serve as our Tua insurance here. I've used both Spot Track and Over the Cap player valuations to try to determine what kind of price points make the most sense. I'm giving Mariota something similar to the Mike White deal, which was 2 years, $12 million. Mike White had some incentives that was tucked in there. Perhaps that gets put into Mariota's contract as well. But from a structure standpoint, if you gave him, say, hypothetically, a $4 million signing bonus and put 2 years on the back end of a 2-year deal that are void years, the $4 million signing bonus, he receives all that cash here and now, but you only have to account for $1 million of it against the cap. You try not to abuse the void year situation and the tool that exists, but it is something that if you want to compete at the degree in which teams at the top of the league are competing, this is a necessary evil, and it is a necessary piece of the puzzle moving forward. If you choose to just throw your hands up and say, I don't really believe in putting dummy years to reduce salary cap hits because that just creates more debt headaches for you moving forward, just understand you're going to get lapped by the field. That's the unfortunate reality of the way that these salary cap tools work. And until they close the loophole with whatever next collective bargaining agreement at the end of this decade negotiation looks like, if that's a sticking point, which I don't imagine that it will be, because from a player's perspective, it means they get more money. This is just a part of the deal moving forward. Philadelphia had either the most or top 3 in the league in future debts allocated to void years with players not under contract than any other team in the league. They just won the championship, right? And they did that in part because they put together a really good team, but a part of the process of putting together a really good team was embracing the reality of void years. So the salary cap schedule for Marcus Mariota on a 2-year, $12 million contract will be $3 million in cap this year, $7 million in cap in 2026 on the second year of the deal. And then in 2027, he would be off the roster, but you would have a $2 million dead cap automatically scheduled in with those 2 years of dead cap that accelerate up into the first year he's not on the roster. But it's worth noting, you have $6 million in base salary for Marcus Mariota that you could potentially use as a rainy day fund or a slush fund if you wanted to create more salary cap space in 2026. With $6 million, you could theoretically restructure the $6 million base salary that he has, and you would only have to pay 2 of it against this year's cap, and then the other $4 million would go into the dead money year, and then he'd have a $6 million dead cap hit in 2027. You don't have to do that, but it's just another lever that you can possibly pull. And then if you extend Marcus Mariota after 2 years, then all that prorated money does not accelerate, and you could just continue to string it out throughout. It's part of the tools you have. At running back, I like Travis Homer, which should be a familiar name for South Florida fans. But just to get another back in the room, that's around 205, 210, a little bit of a bigger back, very low mileage on his tires. So if you think about the objectives that we had at the beginning of yesterday's show, we had 5 offseason objectives: mitigate injury risk, salary cap health, let's get physical, more physical football players, get younger, and you need more dogs on the roster, right? The unfortunate reality with Marcus Mariota is I don't think he qualifies for any of those things, but he's Tua insurance, and that's the world you have to live in with Tua Tagovailoa's injury history. Because he's on the wrong side of 30. It's $6 million a year you're spending for a backup, so it's not particularly economically friendly. He's had his own fair share of injury issues throughout the course of his playing time. I wouldn't classify him as a dog, and you're not getting younger, right? So you're not checking any of the 5 boxes, but it's a necessary evil that you have to just kind of swallow the pill with. As far as Travis Homer, young player, 26, low mileage, not a lot of injury issues there. And the exchange and trade-off for either Jeff Wilson or Raheem Mostert to proposed a 1-year, $1.5 million contract for Travis Homer is you're getting cheaper as well. So you get 3 out of the 5 offseason objectives for a player who should be a depth player and special teams type player for you in Travis Homer. That's the offensive backfield. Now, I do have 2 pass catchers, and I use that phrase strategically because I went back and forth on the right investment opportunities to take here. Where I ultimately landed is I wanted to add physicality and a dog to this room. The challenge is the tight end room in particular is, I'm trying to think of a more dire adjective than bleak. And I don't know that I have one. But I added 2 pass catchers that gives you more flexibility for what ultimately ends up happening with Tyreek Hill, with what ultimately helps you with your execution of the run game and getting guys out on the edges. Who those players are, we're going to get into right after the break. So make sure that you guys stick with us. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip, or if you want to bet a big fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on all of the action. And if you're looking for bigger payouts, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, no matter the score, whether you're banking on that late game rally for your favorite team or picking up a player to hit a clutch three. Never feel like you miss your chance over at FanDuel. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's dive right in. Who these pass catchers are, the mystery pass catchers that are going to help the Dolphins be a deeper room of pass catchers this year. One of which don't bank on catching a lot of passes. That's Ben Skowronek, the supersized wide receiver, formerly this past year of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but had his big breakout with the LA Rams, with Sean McVay and the ways in which they used him. Which very much blurred the lines between tight end, wide receiver, fullback at times. 6'3", 224 pounds. This is a nasty, you know what. And it's a family-friendly show, so I can't say what's real in my eye here, but 27 years old, 6'3", 224, physical, blocks his rear end off, will play special teams, very niche player. What's interesting for me is when I consider, do you get tougher with him on the roster? Yes. Now, he played last year and really was kind of a fringe contributor. He played his first 3 years in the league with the Rams. He kind of got mitigated as they got more physical with more prolific pass catchers. And then he's in Pittsburgh for 10 games last year and only caught 5 passes. But there's a value here that extends beyond just catching passes. And I know that's the primary objective of an NFL player, but he played almost 700 snaps for the Rams in 2022. I'd offer him a $2 million deal, right? And this is competition for Grant Dubose. This is competition for Eric Ezukanma. I'd give him a $500,000 signing bonus, but I wouldn't guarantee him a whole lot of anything. It's a chance to win a spot on the roster and bring some nasty. But when you think about the Dolphins wide receiver room at 1 year, $2 million, which is more than what he played for last year, it's still a financially economic and salary cap friendly decision. He hasn't really had a lot of injury issues. He's an absolute dog and he's more physical. So, and at 27, he's not an old player, but he's also not a young player. He checks a lot of boxes, what you're looking for a very discounted rate. And the reason why is because it's a very niche role to fill on the roster that, isn't the marquee, wow, he's going to change how we game plan on a weekly basis. There's more than one. For those of you watching on YouTube, I won't put myself on screen here. There's more than one player throughout this free agency crop that qualifies for that exact same idea. A very role specific type of player that if you have the right vision for, he can check a lot of boxes and change a lot of dynamics for your team, even if he's not a featured player in the offense. And case in point, as recently as 2023, Ben Skowronek played over 300 snaps on special teams. You get a player like that who is just a total missing link for you. In college, he won down the field as a vertical guy, kind of like a Matt Collins-y type of player. That should paint a pretty good picture of what the expectations are for Ben Skowronek. So adding him to the wide receiver room is a quality depth option for 1 year, $2 million with intent of competing for a wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 spot. Josh Palmer is the other name, and it's a little bit more of a notable name. He's played his first 4 years in the NFL with the Chargers. He came in as a third-round pick out of Tennessee in 2021. 25 years old, so you're getting younger. He's a physical player, 6'1", 210. Dolphins don't have any wide receivers over 200 pounds right now. Then what? Does Grant Dubose count? Does Eric Ezukanma qualify? But he's a much more accomplished player. Last year, he caught 39 passes for 584 yards in this very play-action heavy scheme that the Chargers ran with Harbaugh and their intent of running the football. Early in his career, in 2022, he's a high-volume target guy. He had over 100 targets. But he averaged under 11 yards per catch, only had 3 touchdowns. So he's kind of established as a role player. And because of that, I think you're looking to add role players, and this guy's a role player that has a little bit more of a pass catching ceiling. 2 years, $9.5 million is the valuation that I'm rolling with here, which fits in between the cap resources that exist online and what their projected valuation for Josh Palmer is as a receiver. But I think you're getting tougher. He's played in at least 15 games in three of his first 4 seasons in the NFL. So you're mitigating some injury risk there. You're getting deeper at wide receiver, which mitigates your injury risk. And a young guy at 25 years old. He's already 25. He won't turn 26 until after the season starts. He's a young player. So I have an offer for 2 years, $9.5 million, with a salary cap schedule of $2.75 million in 2025, $4.75 million in 2026, and then $2 million in void money in 2027 for spreading out his signing bonus across a larger sample size than the number of years that he's under contract with the team. So that's 4 skill player additions: Marcus Mariota, Travis Homer, Ben Skowronek, and Josh Palmer. None of these guys are the general Andrew Luck, dearest Martha, we've won the war, we've secured the game-changing talent in free agency, right? Like, that's not really the vibe here right now. But I'm saving the money that we do have to spend it on some players that are going to, I think, change the dynamics of your football team. And that starts in the trenches. So I have a swing utility offensive lineman, and I have a starting guard to start with. And these are 2 players that have experience in branches of the Kyle Shanahan offense. It's Joe Noteboom, offensive tackle from the Rams, and offensive guard Aaron Banks from the San Francisco 49ers. Now, Noteboom, the Rams proactively gave him a big contract. He had an injury on there. He regressed his play after kind of popping off playing at offensive guard for the Rams. He's kind of fallen by the wayside, and he got beat out by Alaric Jackson for the long-term tackle spot. And then they ended up giving Alaric Jackson a 3-year, $51 million contract extension. The Rams did just last week. So they made the big-time investment there. But Joe Noteboom, when you consider the body of work as a player who's been in the league since 2018, he's been with the Rams that entire time, 2 contracts worth, rookie contract and then a second contract. He's taken significant snaps at left tackle, left guard, right tackle. I think he's a very good option as a swing utility type of player. But because he's 29, he's had some injury issues. He hasn't played more than 350 snaps in any but one season since 2020. Played 279 snaps in 21, 325 snaps in 2022, 573 in 2023, and then 220 snaps this past year in 2024. Obviously, that coinciding with they have brought in a lot of new bodies with Jonah Jackson, who they've already made available for trade, and drafting Bo Limmer and drafting Steve Avila and trading for Kevin Dotson, and they have Rob Havenstein, and then Alaric Jackson has emerged for them as a tackle. So not all of this is injury related, but he does have multiple across his 7 seasons of NFL play. After being a 3rd-round pick in 2018, he does have multiple seasons of some kind of injury on his books. And because of that, with his age and losing his starting job, being perceived to be a swing and utility type player, it probably feels like the kind of economic swing of the bat that the Dolphins are going to be in a position to take. Forecasting out, 2 years, $8 million. You can get that salary cap schedule spread out. You can put void years on it if you want to. I wouldn't go too crazy with it. But the salary cap schedule that I have forecasted is 3 years this year, 3 years next year. And those are the 2 years he's under contract, and then a $2 million void charge in 2027. So 2 years from now, you'll have a dead cap charge of $2 million if Joe Noteboom's contract expires and you don't give him a contract extension. But a player with that kind of positional flexibility, he's played 4 spots on the line, and he has experience as a starting player, and he's played good as recently as I thought in 22 and 21, he was a good player, and that was when he earned the contract extension. And then when he got the contract extension, that's when they tried to, take him from being a left tackle, and he had to move around a little bit more from attrition. He dealt with an injury in that stretch as well, which felt like it impacted his play. But as a depth piece, I feel good about it. We're going to talk about Aaron Banks. We're going to talk about the rest of this free agency crop on the other side of it. Make sure you guys stick with us. Let's talk Aaron Banks. Former San Francisco 49er, is an expiring contract set to hit free agency. I graded Aaron Banks when I did his film study as an adequate level starter. And at 27 years old, coming off of his rookie contract, which he played in San Francisco, this is a 325-pound athlete and moves pretty well for 325. Is he Robert Hunt? No, I don't think he's Robert Hunt. But he's also not Robert Jones. And that in and of itself, I think you have a player you should have an expectation is going to come in and understand how the offense works, has good functional strength, has good displacement ability, has sufficient level athleticism, is a sufficient level pass protector. He's played at least 750 snaps in every one of his NFL seasons that he has been asked to contribute and start for the team. He effectively redshirted his rookie year, and then he played 1146, 1042, and 775 in his last 3 seasons. And he's an ascending player. I think he's played better in each of the last 3 seasons. Do I think San Francisco's really in a place with trying to figure out Brock Purdy to get him under contract? No, I don't. And because of that, I think Aaron Banks, who has a nice track record of availability, he's played almost 3,000 snaps in the last 3 seasons. You're unequivocally getting more physical, but you got to pay him a market contract. And the projection there is a little over $8 million per season. I believe Spot Track has him at 10. Over the cap has him at less than that. So you kind of put it in the middle. I'd give him a year and a half of this 3-year contract as fully guaranteed money. And I'd put void years on the back end to kind of stash. If you gave him a $5 million signing bonus on a 3-year deal and put 2 void years on the back end of it, you only have to pay $1 million of the signing bonus up front. That's how I would choose to tackle the left guard spot with Aaron Banks. So 2 offensive line additions to go with all the skill players that we've looked at. But I want to have my Billy Mays moment here. But wait, there's more. On the offensive line, let's get serious about building up these trenches. Put me down for Will Fries, right guard, Indianapolis Colts, age 26, so you're getting younger. Definitely has a physicality component that the Dolphins' interior blockers last year did not have. There's the same level of displacement ability. Now, he's a little more mechanical, I think, than Aaron Banks, but he's lighter. I think he actually moves a little better, has a little bit more dynamic movement than what Aaron Banks does as well. But if you told me that you sign Will Fries, you get Aaron Banks, you get Joe Noteboom, I think you could say, based off also having Patrick Paul and Austin Jackson and Aaron Brewer, you're kind of starting to have this thing come together a little bit. Now, the downside for Will Fries is you are going to have to get serious about a contract offer here. This is not a contract you can come in and kind of fluff around with a low ball value. Spot Track has him at 14. Will Fries does not have it, or Over the Cap does not have him at 14. But Will Fries, my offer here that I'm selling is 3 years, $36 million. With effectively 2 years of it guaranteed, $23.5 million guaranteed. So it's this year and next year, guaranteed salary. Again, 26, so you're getting young, you're getting physical on the inside. I think he's an adequate level starter who is another player who is ascending in a direction. He won the start. He was a 7th round pick. He won the job in 23 and played as an adequate level starter. And then he played, and looked like he was really on the cusp of a breakthrough this year. Played well the first month of the season. And then he had a broken leg and missed the rest of the year. So you are getting some injury red tape with Will Fries, but at the same time, I don't think it's an exhaustive injury history that I think would qualify as failing to mitigate injury risk. Even though he is, you contrast that to guys like Will Hernandez, who's on the wrong side of 30 and had a season-ending injury last year in which he only played a month, and James Daniels, who popped his Achilles and is getting close to the age of 30. I'll say this for the Dolphins brass. Y'all choose to pencil in guys like Will Hernandez and James Daniels coming off of season-ending injuries, pushing 30. You can enjoy every bit of sowing, reaping of the sowing that you're doing. If that's the direction you choose to go, I'm not asking you to break the bank here, and maybe Aaron Banks ends up being more than $8 million per season. And maybe Will Fries ends up being more than $12 million per season. But those two players combined gives you the value of a Robert Hunt. And I think that's economic enough. You do kind of have to get with the times that these guys do get paid now. And if that means you got to axe Joe Noteboom and you got to go in and draft a swing tackle, but you want to get two starting caliber players like that, do that. Like at least get serious about adding some youthful, stout, displacement-capable players on the interior offensive line. That's what this plan affords you the chance to do. Speaking of displacement players, holy cow, guys. If you could tell me I could add any player on the defensive side of the ball, my answer wouldn't be Bobby Brown, but Bobby Brown is the next player that I think aligns with the Ben Skowronek theory of hyper-specific roles on the team. This is not a nose tackle, but he's 320 pounds. He's 24. He's still just a pup, but he's a pup that's got some bite because he is a freaking dog, man. He is so physical up front, predominantly a B-gap player. You think about him and Zach Sealer, and then you get an authentic nose tackle. I think you're obviously getting younger. You're getting more physical with his size at 320. He's a dog. And being that young, he's just entering into the prime of his career where you don't really have the injury history that, say, and Calais was available for you, but Calais was still on a pitch count for you. It comes without some of the red tape of a 39-year-old defensive tackle. Now, if Calais Campbell calls you up tomorrow and says he wants to come back, you sign him, like, period. There's no imagination that's required there, right? But Bobby Brown, that's going to be a central theme on the defensive side of the ball. I think you're filling in spots on the offensive side of the ball to complement kind of the established pieces that you have, or defensively, I do think you need to do some redefining, and you need some more tone setters out of that group. So we'll continue. I got 4 more free agents on the defensive side of the ball. Patrick Jones. Bobby Brown, by the way, was a 3-year, $10 million projection. He's kind of like this year's Colin Saunders for me, who I really liked last year. Ended up signing in New Orleans as kind of an under-the-radar man. I think he's really good. I think with a bigger opportunity, he could really move the needle. Obviously, that Rams front is just loaded. But because he's a hyper-specific type of role as a player who doesn't really play on a lot of passing downs or hasn't been afforded that chance, he's probably going to be a little bit cheaper than what your original assessment is. And I think he could be an adequate level starter for you. And who knows how high that ceiling goes. Patrick Jones is my Bradley Chubb pivot. And for that reason, I would qualify this as a economic decision because you're looking at a multi-year snapshot of a player who you're not paying $20 million to, right? Like you're paying about half of that across 2 seasons versus what Bradley Chubb is scheduled for in each of the next 2 seasons. If you're not familiar, Patrick Jones played with the Minnesota Vikings, coming off a rookie contract. He's 26 years old. He had 7 sacks last season, can reduce inside and rush from the interior, kind of more of a base end type player, tight alignment. He's not super explosive, but he is somebody who has some length. He has some power conversion. He was drafted in the 3rd round by Minnesota out of the University of Pittsburgh. 7 sacks last year. Over the last 3 seasons, he has 12 sacks, and he's missed 3 games over the last 4 years. Not a starter, though. It's important to note. This is not a starter for your football team. He is a rotational piece of the puzzle, and I'm banking on Chop Robinson and hopefully healthy Jalen Phillips. And then if anybody comes up in the draft that you want to add, in addition to bring back Quentin Bell and now Patrick Jones, like you can feel good about the rotation. Plus, you got some more dogs on the inside to work with. This might be my favorite player, Nate Hobbs. 25 years old, predominantly a slot corner, but he can play outside. And because you're projecting him predominantly as a slot corner, I think the economics here, 3 years, $22 million, which is a little bit more than $7 million per season on average. I'd guarantee him 2 of those 3 years. You can put void years on the back end of a 3-year deal and spread it up to as many as 5 if you give him a signing bonus and prorate it out. But because he's a nickel, you have a much more friendly price point that's going to put him in like the Kenny Moore, Mike Hilton stratosphere of dollars for a corner. This dude is a dog too. He is hyper competitive. He's not the biggest, but he is super quick twitched. He's got great instincts. Nate Hobbs out of that Raiders secondary, that Raiders front had some players that got hurt, and it kind of showed up on their defensive performance this year, but not at the fault of when he was out there. Nate Hobbs, who's again just 25, dog mentality, super combative, really good tackler, brings a lot of great energy. I think it'd be a great ad. And then I am going to go swinging for the fences here on a starting safety duo of Trevon Moehrig and Julian Blackmon. I'll say this for Trevon Moehrig. There's a reason I picked this contract. The terms of his contract that I'm projecting are exactly the same as the terms of the Will Fries contract. And the reason why is because it goes back to a little earlier this offseason. We talked about the needs at non-premium positions. Guard, and teams are a little bit more willing to spend at guard now than what they were a couple years ago. So it just shows to show I'd pay Trevon Moehrig like what Javon Holland's asking for almost. I think he's that good. He was a really good ball hawk at TCU. He's developed his run game defense. He got some nasty tackles on tape. You could talk about how it might be a black eye to not play a player that you drafted, but I don't think Javon the last 2 years has played to that standard. This guy does, man. Like he checks all those boxes for me. Now, obviously, it's not an economically friendly dollar amount because you're talking, more than $10 million per year at 3 for 36 for a starting safety. That's not economically friendly, but he's physical. He plays a lot of football. He's still just 25 years old. He's got that dog mentality to him that you're bringing to the third level of the defense. I don't have a lot of questions with Trevon Moehrig, who came in the same draft class. He's going to turn 26 in June, but he's missed 2 games in his NFL career, and they both came in 2022. Talk about ascending players, right? You're getting ascending players who are in bad situations, coming off of rookie contracts that you can get for competitive price points that might make sense for you. That's Trevon Moehrig. And then Julian Blackmon, I had interest in last year. He went back to Indy on a 1-year deal at about $4 million, 26 years old, a little bit of a smaller player, but I would bring him into the fray as well as a potential adequate level starter to go with Trevon Moehrig. And Nate Hobbs, just you're infusing on the front in the offensive line. You're infusing on the defensive line with a new rotational pass rusher to help replace Bradley Chubb and Bobby Brown. And then you got these guys in the secondary, 3 new players in the secondary. All of that leaves you with 12 new players. And with those 12 new players, you still have $8 million in cap space for your top 51 to work with to go into this NFL draft class cycle. So that's what we got. Trevon Moehrig, Will Fries, Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, Bobby Brown, Julian Blackmon, projected starters. Marcus Mariota, Patrick Jones, Josh Palmer, Joe Noteboom, Ben Skowronek, Travis Homer, projected depth players going from $34.45 to $8 million in cap space. And remember, part of the blueprint is we're looking at the long-term cap health and picture. So when we get to the end of the week, we're still going to have a chance to look at what does these signings at these dollars amount mean for 2026, 2027, and 2028 salary cap space. We got a great week ahead of us. Come on back. See us again tomorrow. I'm Kyle Krabs. I appreciate you guys as always. Check out the show. Keep it locked in right here. Locked on Dolphins. Rest of the week. Rest of the offseason blueprint. Mock draft coming your way tomorrow. Stick with us.